Welcome to Live Your Legacy, the conversational podcast where we explore how life's defining moments shape the legacy we leave behind. I'm your host, Patricia D. Freudenberg, also known as Patty from New York, and this show is rooted simply in truth. Grief is not always about death. Sometimes it comes through life's challenges, losses, detours, and new beginnings. And here we speak with entrepreneurs, authors, leaders, and creators who have turned their life's defining moments into meaningful work and lasting contributions. Because legacy is not only what we leave behind, it's where we are shaping right now through vision, impact, and purpose. And today I am honored to welcome Linda Grizely. And Linda Grizely is an amazing, amazing woman. And we'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a minute. But I want to let you know she's an expert in her lane. And she is a financial wellness speaker, a personal finance educator, host of the Real Money, Real Life podcast. Linda helps people build confidence and clarity with money and helps organizations understand how financial stress shows up at work and impacts focus, engagement, and performance. Her approach blends financial expertise with real life experience, making money conversations more human, practical, and judgment free. We're going to hear a little bit more about Linda. So come on in, Linda. Let's hear your voice. Tell the people a little bit more about you, those who don't know who you are. Linda, welcome to Live Your Legacy. How are you?
Thanks, Patty. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for calling me amazing. That is always nice to hear that people think that. I am, like you said, a financial wellness speaker. I'm a certified financial planner. Everything that I do is all about how personal finance needs to coordinate the strategy and the tactics with real life. How does money show up in our real life and how do we interact with it? So my main belief is everyone deserves to feel confident with money and good about how they spend it. And it's about relieving the guilt and the shame and showing up judgment free and lecture free and helping people move forward to feel better with money.
Well, I mean, this conversation is a well-needed conversation. I think everybody needs to have this conversation because money is part of life. There's no way around that. What was the one pivotal moment that changed the direction of your life and work?
First, I have to say there are many pivotal moments in my life. I've had a very interesting life. But if I had to point to one pivotal moment, it was I was in my late 40s and I was newly divorced and trying to figure out what my next chapter was. I had quit a job and gone back to school. And I was just in this learning phase, right? I wanted to learn more and develop myself. And I went to a mastermind of one of John Maxwell's books. So it was a John Maxwell certified person that was leading this mastermind about the laws of leadership. And I went to this just because I was like, I need to learn more and build I was working on building like my resume, right? Going back to school and learning things. And this was just another thing for me to learn. But what happened was that in that mastermind, I had this epiphany, this turning point where I realized that there was so much more about how people work and how they interact with other people that I had not been studying or learning about. And that was a key point where I realized that internal growth and being introspective and looking into yourself, as well as trying to understand other people, was a key part of personal growth, not just going to school and learning things. And I would say that is the most pivotal point in my journey.
Wow. That's a great thing to get when you're at younger self, right? Because some people don't get that till like way after midlife. So that's really, really awesome. And clearly it affected the work you do today. So what transition shaped you the most? You were a student then. And was there anything you were doing then that made it be a transition to what you're doing now, or did you expand what you're doing now? Tell me a little bit more, like how did this shape you and your transitions?
There's a couple of things, and actually, they go very well with your theme, live your legacy. Excuse me, because when I was going back to school, I went back to school to get a bachelor's degree because I didn't have one. And I was doing a dual major in marketing and human resources because I love marketing. It's part of who I am. And human resources was a place I felt I was lacking in skills in some of the jobs that I had had. I had owned a business and I had been an executive director, and I felt like I needed more HR like knowledge. So I was filling in those gaps. But my goal was to get a job working for a non-for-profit. And the reason is because I wanted to help people and I wanted to have a big impact. So by working for a non-for-profit, I could help more people and have a bigger impact. And being that that was the direction I was going, once I was done with my bachelor's degree, I signed up for a program called the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy program. And it was through the American College of Financial Services, which all of that is just a really big mouthful. But hopefully you got philanthropy and financial services, right?
Yes.
Now, my goal
Yes.
wasn't to work in financial services. It was philanthropy. It was like, how do I help people give bigger gifts? Like think hospitals and universities and like really large legacy giving, leaving a legacy through philanthropy, right? That's what I was there to learn about. And what I discovered was that this program obviously served also financial advisors who were working with ultra high net worth people, in addition to fundraisers like and non-for-profits like I was aspiring to be in philanthropy. And it started to make sense that I could help people through financial planning. And so I got more and more intrigued about financial planning. And a lot of my prior experience in life transferred over to that because I had worked in real estate and 1031 exchanges and escrows, and a lot of that stuff transferred over. And that's how I started in financial services was with the idea that I was going to help people with their finances. And I never did work with the ultra high net worth, like philanthropy, like big gifts people, but I did help a lot of people. And in that process, I was not only interested in the numbers and everything behind it, I was interested in the people behind it. And one of the things that I've always known about myself, even before I had that epiphany about personal growth, was that I'm always interested in other people's stories. And so when I started to see how people's personalities and own like emotional things affected how they worked with their finances, like the strategies, and how there was sometimes a disconnect, I got more and more interested in that, which is when I started to bring the person into the plan and understand like how things might work for them or not work for them. For instance, give you an example. I was sitting in on another advisor's meeting with a client, and we had this whole meeting with the client, and then we were done with the client, and the client was gone, and the advisor said to me, "She's never going to do what I just told her to do." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Like, what do you mean she's not going to do?" She's like, "She's just not going to." And I was like, "Well, don't we need to do something about it?" And she's like, "No." And I was just dumbfounded because I was like, this person's not going to do what you told them to do, but you're not doing anything about it. And so this part was like eye-opening for me too, because I was like, wow, there's so much here about how we can give the best strategy and the best idea and say, this is what you should do, but it's not going to matter if the person's not able to do it because of the emotions they have, the stories they tell themselves, how they grew up with money, all these other things that play into it. And so I got this whole idea going in my head about how do we meet ourselves with money and finance and strategy as well as our person. And now, as a financial wellness speaker and an educator and podcaster and all of that, I get to have a bigger impact by sharing that knowledge with more and more people. So I'm sorry if that was a long roundabout
No,
story about
no, that
how
was
I do what
that
I
was
do. And
really, really great. No, I kind of want you to keep talking about that. So with that being said, because it's you said a lot, you did, but everything was really beautiful because I'm a visual and I'm like, wow, you're a bridge. That there was a gap there. There was a gap between like it's not just financial literacy. It's like implementation. It's like you could there's theory and then there's practical, and you were like bridging both. You were teaching the wellness part, educating somebody. And I it's like learning how to like cook. You can't cook a cake if you don't have the ingredients, right? If you don't know how to cook, if you don't get the directions and the ingredients. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but that's what it reminded me of. And I really never heard a financial advisor go down this route. That's just not my lane and I'm not noticing, but I can't recall hearing this boutique kind of financial planning, because it really is boutique. And congratulations, because I really, really think it's so needed. It's so needed because some people just, they're not making wise choices because they just don't know how. They don't know the how, and you're getting them through that. So thank you for that. And what lessons have you learned? And again, loaded question. It's okay. Is there a motto that you go by? That helps your clients or you through the journey.
Yeah, so there is. Let me first say I work in two lanes which are very distinct to me and to our industry, but not to the regular person out there listening. So I do financial coaching, and I have a lot more of the personal part in the coaching part, but in that part, I don't handle investments or talk about or give investment advice or do planning. And then as an advisor or a planner, I do more of the money strategy part with a little bit of the personal stuff in it. And in that role, I can do advice and planning. So two separate businesses, two separate things. Just wanted to clarify that. But I think the biggest thing that I do is my MeMoney Method is one of the things that I talk about all the time. And the MeMoney Method is very simple. It's taking a certain amount of money, whatever that makes sense for you, and I can help you figure that out, and setting it aside just for you. Because when you go to work with a financial planner or you set up a budget, either one, you look at what's coming in and what's going out, whether you call it flat cash flow or you call it budgeting, whatever you want to call it. There's always like this gray area of like, where does this money go? And that's the money that you spend on yourself that you're not tracking. You might have a line item that says going out to eat or, the gym membership or golfing or whatever your thing is. You might have a line item for that, but there's still this gray area of like stuff is going somewhere and we don't know where. And that's kind of where what the me money comes from. When I'm helping people figure out what that number is. But let me tell you the story about how MeMoney started, long before it was even called MeMoney.
Yes.
It started because I put my husband on a budget. And I said, I'm going to give you this amount of money and you're going to spend it and you have to live within this means of this money. And the reason I did that was because I handle the finances and I know I detail everything. So I know exactly what he is spending. And he has no idea what he's spending. And it becomes clear to me through conversations that he has no idea that he's spending this amount of money. So I put him on this budget knowing that he's going to be okay. I'm not being super restrictive or whatever. He's going to be okay. He can make it within this amount of money. But my point was to make him, or not make him, but help him to realize how much money he was spending and to realize that all these little things add up. And I did this and he said, well, are you going to give yourself the same budget? And I said, sure, absolutely. I'll give myself the same budget. So he has his money and he's living within that money. And I come back a couple months later and I say, how's it going? And of course he's fine. well, tell me more. What does fine mean? He said, well, I'm just making better choices. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
tell me more. Because my whole point was just for him to be able to realize how much money he was spending, just to be aware. So awareness was my goal, for him to be aware. And my concern was that he would feel controlled or restricted, like that I was controlling him or restricting him.
of course.
And when he said he was making better choices, I was like, okay, this is even better than I thought it was going to be, better than what I was hoping for. So I said, tell me more about that. And he said, for instance, I saw this golf shirt that I wanted, but I knew that if I bought the golf shirt, that I wouldn't have that extra money to spend towards my golf trip that I have coming up. So I didn't buy the shirt. And I said, okay, so how do you feel about the shirt? Like, do you want to go back and buy the shirt? Do you feel bad that you don't have the shirt? And he's like, no, I have, however many closet full of golf shirts. He's like, I don't need that one golf shirt. I don't have to go back and get it. And it's fine that I don't have it. It's not affecting me at all. And I said, but if you didn't have the budget, you would have bought the shirt and spent the money on the vacation. He's like, yeah, I would have done both. I'm like, okay, this is very eye-opening. So I'm like, all right, he's making better choices. And he's aware that he's making better choices because he's aware of what he's spending now and he wasn't aware before. So I did get him to have the awareness, but he's also making better choices. So now flip this over to me. Remember, he asked me to go on the same budget. So same roof, same whatever lifestyle, like same amount of money. It doesn't matter who makes more money. We have the same amount. Now, I was always the person who said, I can't afford to go on a girl's trip, or I can't afford that face cream or whatever. And I could justify spending $10 10 times on something because I'm justifying $10 at 10 different points in time. But for me to justify $100, I would feel the guilt and I would feel like, oh, I shouldn't spend that on me. I should do something else. But now that I have this money, I'm sitting there and I'm using this little packet of this face cream and I'm like squeezing it out because it's a sample. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could afford this. This stuff feels so great. And I'm like, all this stuff's going on in my head. And I'm like, all of a sudden this light bulb goes off and I'm like, I have the money. I have it sitting there in this separate account. That's my money to spend on me however I want. I'm like, I'm going to buy this. I bought like the daytime, the nighttime. I bought like the whole complete regimen that I never in a million years would have bought otherwise. So we're talking like, I'm in my mid 50s now and I'm finally able to say yes to myself and not feel guilt about spending money. So I'm having this like totally mind blowing thing where I'm like, he's making better choices. I don't feel guilty. There's something bigger here. And as I started to put pieces together, I realized there's even more because it's leveling the playing field between us as partners. Because me as the person who felt guilty and shame and needed structure and knew he was spending too much, like I have anxiety over money, and he's out there like, I don't care. Like he's just like free.
Good old time.
And yet he was doing all of these things and I wasn't. And so I realized that there was some friction there in the idea that he was doing all these things and I felt like I couldn't, like we were leading almost two separate lives. And I realized that this leveled the playing field because now we both have the same amount to spend on ourselves. If one of us isn't there, it comes from our me money. If we're both there, then it comes from separate money, right? Or we can just decide. But it leveled the playing field. So now he can do whatever he wants and I can do whatever I want. And not that we ever had to answer to each other because we didn't, because we were a blended marriage. We got married later, so we weren't answering to each other. But I wasn't answering to myself. And I didn't feel like he was doing all kinds of things that I wasn't allowing myself to do. So there was like 3 different layers to this. So I started implementing this with clients and I found that it works like no matter what your money personality is. Like you can be a spender, you can be an avoider, you can be a saver, a security seeker. But the idea of just taking this one little piece and putting intention around it creates this whole different awareness of money. Wow. And so that's how the MeMoney Method came to be. I didn't call it that in the beginning, but I call it that now. And I teach it to other advisors too, about how to help uncover their clients' money personality and set aside me money for them. And it especially comes into play, like let's say in retirement, when people feel like they can't spend money because they're scared that they're going to run out of money. By having structure to it and having an amount there that allows them It's just a different way to look at it, and it just brings intention and awareness to everything.
Complete clarity. Complete clarity. I'm like, I love the birth of the Me Money. And as you were talking, I'm like, this is me too. This is like my life. It really, it applies to everybody. I want to read this comment. We have somebody coming in, a viewer. Thank you for joining us. The Tina Maloney O'Shea. It's being more cognizant of your choices and no mindless spending. That's right. Taking a pause and looking at the whole picture. That's right. That great. Exactly the point. I love the story. So now you discovered the Me Money, and it's funny that you were doing it as a teaching point to your husband, and you end up learning yourself and yourself. That's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So with that being said, you now you start teaching it to other advisors. When did you start like publicly talking about it?
Oh my gosh, I started publicly talking about it probably just last summer, because that's when I left a corporate job and got my voice back again. When I was allowed to speak freely.
Tell us more.
I was allowed to speak freely again. That's when I started talking about it. And that's when I actually named it, because I was implementing it with clients before I had a name for it, just because it was a good strategy. And then once I started to create my own business and start a name for myself and doing coaching and speaking, I was actually having a conversation with someone who was helping me with setting up my brand, and they were like, "What sets you apart? What do you do different?" And I was telling them, "Well, I do this. I tell them the story, and I'm like, and they're like, what is that?" And I'm like, "Well, that's my money for me. That's my me money. Like I get to," and they're like, "That's what it is." I'm like, perfect.
I love when something's birthed like that. It's so organic and so it's so beautiful. And I love it. And I love that that's yours. It's yours, your Me Money. I love that you teach that. So now, I love that you're a public speaker. I know you're going back to some more of that. Would you like to share? Like, what do you like about that? What's your aspirations with that?
Well, remember I said I wanted to make a big impact and help a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do public speaking. Makes that's sense. Why I get in front of audiences and talk about money. I talk about the human aspect of money, and also how money shows up at work, right? People come to work burdened with personal finance issues. It can be just about things that are going on at home. It can be about how they feel about what they're getting paid. It could be, a lot of times it's just that they're living beyond their means and everything is kind of like stressing them out. And that shows up at work. And sometimes you can figure out those things through having conversations with your employees and understanding like where they're at, and bringing resources to them that help them get a better handle on their money, and how they can, work better with it, can make them just overall healthier. So it's financial wellness at work in that case. And the idea behind it is that if companies bring in resources and there's knowledge about how it affects their people, they'll have a greater ROI, less turnover, and it really just can make a big difference.
Wow. Sense of relief. You're also teaching and giving a sense of hope too. So I'm going to take it back a little bit. What would you say to your younger self today with all this experience under your belt?
My answer is always the same. Think bigger. Because I lived in such a small world, and I'm talking a small world until I was in my late 40s, when I had that epiphany that I needed to understand myself and understand people and have like insight. And even though I always enjoyed like learning about people and their stories, I never really thought deeper about it. I just think bigger about what you can do and about how things work, how life works.
Don't limit yourself, right? Don't limit yourself. Yeah. I love that. So this is a little parlay of that question, and you might answer it just the same, but let's hear, what wisdom would you want your future self to keep holding on to?
Oh, it is the same, but it's more of that, I recognize now that the journey is never over. It's really never over. You're constantly
Mm.
learning, you're constantly evolving. And I want to be constantly making the world a better place and sharing my
Mm.
knowledge and helping people. And I think for my future person, I would just say, like, remember what each time you go through something, it's just a building block that makes you who you are. And that just is going to continue. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you are. That's beautiful. You keep going, and it reminds me, that I love that share because it brought to mind another quote that we know: "Run if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep it moving." That's how it felt to me. That answer. We have another viewer here, Rodney Rock Hartfield. How are you? Linda is definitely making a difference in difference daily in somebody else's life. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Aw.
For the flowers. Thank you for that. That's really kind of you. Thank you for supporting the show and being here. This is Live Your Legacy, and we are talking with Linda Grizely, a financial advisor, a financial like everything, because she's filling a big gap. She's filling a big gap. With that being said, you like to teach, show. Who has been the most memorable mentor in your life? And if you could tell us why.
My I shouldn't say the word hate. I don't like when people ask this
Doesn't have
because
to be just one, but
I don't have a person.
you don't want to name just one.
No, I don't have any
Okay.
people. I have no people. Books. I mean, I suppose there
I
are
don't mean to
people, there are the
laugh.
authors behind the books, but books, like all, like that that has been my biggest, they have been my biggest mentors. So it's, all the classics like Think and Grow Rich, the John Maxwell books, Good to Great. Like there's just so many great lessons out there. And each one, each book, each piece, like you take a few key pieces from. It's not like everything in there is life changing, but when you add all those little bits together that you get from all of these books, it's huge. Like the cumulative effect of the pieces of advice that you get. I love talking about the Stockdale paradox, which I think it's, hopefully I'm getting this right, Jim Collins in Good to Great
Never heard
talks
that.
about the Stockdale paradox. I love that one. It's all about resilience and positive mindset. You'll have to look it up, but it's all about,
Yeah.
it's about a prisoner of war, name of Stockdale, and I'm probably getting this somewhat wrong, but the idea behind it is that you have to keep in mind like the circumstances that you're in, no matter how horrible they are, but keep a positive mindset in moving forward to know that you will prevail overall, but not get caught up in the idea that it's going to happen at a certain time or give yourself timelines. Like you just have to have a knowing that you're going to prevail, but be fully aware of your circumstances and deal with the circumstances at the same time, which is like two realities can exist at the same time. And it's all
Wow.
about
Well, that
mindset
part.
and getting
And
through
I think
things.
if you could just repeat that, you just nailed it though, because it's like, do something about it. That part, I don't know if you speak a lot on that part, but like the do something about it part, because with finance, a lot of us could be in a situation with finance and we just sulk, right? But you're doing do something about it.
Right.
I love that. Do you speak more on that?
I don't. I sometimes bring it up in conversation. I did make a YouTube video about how it goes, how the Stockdale paradox works in finance. Like, if you're in a really bad situation, the best thing to do is acknowledge that you're in the bad situation, understand where you are, but have the mindset
Yeah.
that you're going to get out of it and that you're going to be better and start taking action and doing things to move forward positively rather than just sitting in being like, well, I'm just horrible with money and this is never going to change. And, it's all about
And
having
that's
that
so
mindset.
common. That's so
Yeah.
common.
Yeah.
That's it's just so important. I intercept a lot. I just get a little excited, but it just seems so common that seems to be more of the mindset. So I'm glad there's Lindas out there, or Linda. Maybe you're the only one teaching this in finance, but it's so important. You don't have to stay there, and I love that you're bringing that to attention. So I'm glad you brought up that book. This question, is one of my oldies but goodies. What does legacy mean to you personally? And I just want to share, legacy, old school legacy was only financial, right? And I think it's funny to ask this question to somebody in the finance world, but truly, and it could be just money. But what does legacy mean to you personally? If you can answer that. Again, these are sometimes heavy questions, but if you could do your best.
Oh, of course. So, okay. So I was going to school for philanthropy and talking about legacy giving, planned giving, and talking about like the universities and the hospitals and where people give big amounts of money. You know what? If I had big amounts of money, I would do all of those great things. I would leave a legacy like that. But I don't have a big amount of money. Not right now, but maybe someday, right?
Not
Good to
yet.
great, like, or
Yeah.
Stockdale paradox, right? But anyway, I think
Yeah.
that for me, my legacy,
Exactly.
I would love for my legacy to be that I've helped, and based on like the numbers of people that I've helped and empowered. So helping people, but more importantly, empowering them to be able to do more, do better, succeed, understand money, take on the challenges that life brings with a better mindset. Like all of those things, that would be the legacy that I would want to leave, since I don't have a ton of money. But even if I did have a ton of
Wow.
money,
Well,
I would
yet.
still want to do that.
Yet is the key word here.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So, with you've done a lot, right? You've done a lot. We didn't even hit the tip of the iceberg. But for the sake of the time of the show, we tried to get down the journey here of your financial teaching and just amazing ways of doing things. If you had to do it all over again, is there anything you would change, or you feel like it was meant to be exactly this way and you do it all over again?
Oh my gosh, there are lots of things in my life that I wish didn't happen, but in all honesty, they all created who I am, and I don't know who I would be if they didn't happen. I think the biggest thing I can say is that I've taken every obstacle that has come my way and used it as a a building block or a stepping stone or a launching pad to move me to the next thing. There's a time and a place for sitting in your moment and grieving and understanding what loss or what experience you just had. But there's also a place when it's time to step forward and move up from that and realize the lesson that it taught you and how you can use that to make your world, your life a better place, a better life.
Beautiful. Be the narrator, right? Be the narrator. In your
Yeah.
journey, what would most people be surprised to learn about your journey?
Oh my goodness. I've lived, I don't know how many different financial lives. I was a teen mom. I was balancing my checkbook, paying my taxes before I was old enough to vote. I was a married mother of
Wow.
three, living in the
Amazing.
suburbs and looking like everything was great, but living paycheck to paycheck. I was then I had money, and everything looked perfect from the outside, but it wasn't on the inside. I got divorced and had to rebuild, and realized I was going behind, which is when I quit my. So I'm going behind financially, but I quit my job and went back to school. Like you would think I would do the opposite. Like, so there's just so many. I mean, I could keep going, Patty.
Well, thank you you for sharing, and thank you for your vulnerability, because this is what people need to hear. And this is what the show is about. Look at you now. Look at you now. Okay. What's the difference between that and like Steve Harvey, right? We hear, that's just one story that comes to mind. Like, you've been there, but now you're here. And kind of like what you shared about your mentors, the books you've read, you can overcome. You can overcome. And you're living proof. And you're living your legacy, which I love, and I'm excited about that. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to share with the viewers here. You can follow on Facebook, just one of a few. If you go to Live Your Legacy, livelegacy.vip for vision, impact, and purpose, you could see all her social and click on them. But otherwise, go to Facebook, the Linda Grizely. Also, we have on the website. We're going to bring up the website now. Let's add it to the stage here. And let's go to I love this. This is Linda in action right here on stage. And you're going to see more of her on stage because that's her legacy right here. She's going to be teaching from the stage. And this is your website right here. Come check it out. I love that it's your name, Linda Grizz. I love that, .com. lindagrizz.com. Check it out. If you want to learn more or what to do, follow your podcast. Your podcast is right here. Also, check out the podcast. I was hooked on your podcast. I got to be honest. This is something I need to pay more attention to. I'm a creative, but when it comes to the financial word, I get a little shy. And I'm going to start doing that me too. That me money. I'm getting it wrong now. MeMoney. I love the MeMoney method. Absolutely love it. I think it's essential. I just can't say enough about it. So check out lindagrizz.com. Let's put the website one more time to show everybody. lindagrizz.com. Check it out. See her on stage. Look at the podcast. Linda, before we get out of here, can you give us some closing remarks?
Oh gosh. Closing remarks. Your finances and money.
Words to live by.
Doesn't have to be as complicated as everybody makes it out to be. It feels overwhelming, and you feel guilt and shame, and you feel like you're behind and you should know more, but you're not alone. And just start with something simple and get that one thing down, and then start the next thing and build good habits around it.
Thank you. That's a really great message. I hope it encouraged somebody out there today. Linda, here is your IG. Where else can we find you? Where are you? Where are you hanging out these days? Podcast world. Let us know where we could find you. Anywhere?
Yeah. Well, you can go to my website, lindagrizz.com, lindagrizz.com, and find all my socials and everything there. I'm most active on LinkedIn. That's where you can find me the most. I'm also on Instagram, which I kind of know how to use, and Facebook, which I kind of know how to use. And then I'm on TikTok and YouTube, and I don't claim to really know how to use those at all, but I'm there.
Join the club. I'm out there, but when I look at the other people, I'm like, oh, they know what they're doing. Here's Linda's Facebook one more time. But I agree. Go to the website. It'll be the best bet because you could pick your choice right there. I love that you're omniscient. I love that you're everywhere. I'm glad you're teaching. I'm excited to see you on more stages. I love your podcast, and I thank you so much for being on Live Your Legacy today. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up. This show is produced by Mr. Graham, a global solution to cope with grief, mourning at the speed of life. My name is Patricia D. Freudenberg, also known as Patty from New York. I am a grief consultant, and this show is about you, the person in the living, the land of the living. This is Live Your Legacy, overcoming all sorts of adversities and making your best day today. With that being said, Linda, we're going to get out of here. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day. God bless.
Thank you. You too.